I don't know if y'all remember, but around Christmas time I made a batch of these recipe boxes using box joints. I made those all as gifts and all of them have been given away, but I kept one. One thing that didn't work is I designed these in mind for using index cards, but we have like all these pages from books of recipes and well, they don't fit in there like that, so they've been in here like this, and I still wanted to do another one eventually, and while I was browsing wood on eBay, I came across this old growth spruce. It's different from regular pine that you would buy from like a big box store because you see all these tons of growth rings on there, and it's not cheap either. I want a box that's wider than this to accommodate this sideways. Well, I want to do something a little different that I've never done before. I want to make the box using dovetails because every freaking woodworker at some point does dovetails. But I did try my first real set of dovetail joints on this piece of oak prior to getting this because I don't want to mess these up. Didn't come out half bad. Let me show you closer. So for my first real attempt, really happy with how these dovetail joints came out. The only issues I had with it is right here. I cut too deep on my line, so there's a little gap there. There was a big gap here. I cut into this pin. You could see the gap there, and that was an accident because I had my line marked and I cut on the wrong side of my line. So that was my fault, and then my blade ran into this pin. Never doing it before. That's a pretty good starting off point. Base of the box. I glue that up so it'll be dry by the time I'm done with everything else. And the minute I saw this old growth spruce, I just knew what I wanted to do with it. Set that aside to dry. Alright, so I need to start laying out my dovetails. The things I used for this, at least when I did these test ones, is box cutter. The square was really important, and the sharpest pencil you have. See, and I don't even know if I'm doing this right, because I've never really done dovetails before. Just making sure I'm flush on the front, and then I'll just mark it with my blade. So I want it to try to be as precise as I could get it. Same with the other side. Alright, so to actually get the angle of the dovetails, first thing I did was I just used this scrap wood with a straight edge and made a line, and then I measured out to that line, set that distance on here, marked it everywhere on my pieces for these outside lines, and now I'm doing the same for the inside. So we'll put and with all those marked, I don't need that scrap piece of wood anymore. You could just use this. Now, there's a high probability that none of these are going to be exactly the same. So whenever we go to make the pin side, we need to really label which sides go together so that they'll actually go together correctly. Okay, now we're ready to start cutting these out. Alright, here's the other part that's probably going to piss off any traditional or professional dovetail woodworkers is that welcome to my high performance dovetail saw. So this is what I've been using. It seems to work. I'm going to, as extremely carefully as I can, cut out these dovetails on this bandsaw. With the tails cut, I just go over kind of as carefully as I can with the chisel. In case anybody was wondering about like using a handsaw or whatever, I did try my first set with a handsaw, and the best handsaw I would have for the job is a Japanese handsaw, and this one I guess it's cheap Probably not ideal for this. It was starting to tear out and leave a pretty raggedy cut, so that's why really the only other thing I could think of was the bandsaw. Alright, after spending time getting these cleaned up from the bandsaw marks, I'm now transferring my tails over to the sides, and you can see I've got everything labeled A, B, C, and D, and I'm labeling the sides. So this side is B, this side will be C. I made sure my pencil is really extra sharp, and I'm just getting it to where these tails are flush. Okay, now I'm marking it immediately C, C, and C, because on this test piece I had to redo the side with the pins because I started cutting these sections out like I was making tails again. And then what I've been doing is I'll take note of this, put a little mark here where this line meets so I can bring those lines down, because we're going to have to transfer those lines. And to me, doing the pins was definitely the hardest part. The scariest part, and probably the part that will continue to anger traditional woodworkers, I've got my table flipped to match my angles. I may have to adjust it at some points if not all my angles are exactly the same. Woo, here we go. I've just spent a really long time with just this chisel, just paring down my pins. Totally cleaned up yet, but I think I could do a test fit. Y'all, that is a dovetail box. And it sounds like they're mowing in my driveway. And they picked 8 o'clock at night to mow their lawn. Anyways, loud neighbors aside, I'm gonna cut the base down to size. I'd like to apologize because the battery in my camera died, so I have to use my phone. So what I've done is this is shipping label paper, and I've peeled all the labels off to leave the waxy side, and I printed a reverse image on it so I could do a transfer. And this is really pretty easy. Lay it flat on there and make sure it transfers really good. And there's what that looks like. I wish I could have got a better shot of it, but I needed both hands. You just lay it down smooth, and I use my fingernail and just kind of burnish it on there so it gets as much ink transferred as possible. And you can see it's a little bit patchy in some places, but I think that's fine because I want this box to look kind of rustic. You can see I glued it to the base, and I decided to spare y'all the sanding, but I think pretty much all it needs now is a finish. So in keeping with trying to maintain a rustic look, well, it's not that I want it to look rustic, it's more of I want it to look like something that's been around for a while. Just like something you would find in grandma's kitchen or something like that, you remember being there like your whole childhood, like, oh yeah, that recipe box was always there. Spray lacquer is my favorite finish of choice. I think that would make it look too plasticky and just not the look I'm going for, and I think Danish oil will be perfect. I really like Danish oil because it's easy to apply, it looks good. First time doing a dovetail project, I don't think it's that bad. Yeah, they weren't hand cut with, hand saws and stuff, but it's just not really my style. Everybody has their own way of working and their own way of enjoying woodworking. Will I ever do dovetails again? Probably not. Never having done a dovetail project before, cutting them myself, I don't think that's half bad. If you liked and enjoyed this project, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to this channel because I have new woodworking projects every Friday. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.